I'm not afraid of these, and I don't hate these. Hi, my name is Dave Croft, and I write music and mix and master in headphones. I'm going to talk about why, as well as unpacking a happy clappy ukulele cue on this week's vlog check-in. Hello everybody, this is Dave Croft. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, and this is my week 15 check-in. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for joining me today. Every week I unpack a cue that I've written in the week before, and I talk about things that are going on in the industry, or some music production tips, or writing for libraries, or just kind of what's going on in my life. And I've been spending a lot of time this week thinking about and feeling guilty for writing in headphones and mixing and mastering in headphones. And I'm coming clean with the idea that it's okay. It's okay. So I'm going to be talking about that. And I'm going to be unpacking this cue called Casual Mondays. I'm going to be unpacking that. Now, if you want to skip over the vlog bits and get straight to the cue breakdown, check out the time code in the description below. But if you want to hear about why I mix in headphones, then stick around. Before we get started, I also want to thank my patrons, those folks who support the channel with their actual real life money. And so thank you guys very much for your continued support of the channel. And if you haven't already, please do all the standard YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, notifications, and all of that. Believe it or not, it helps composers just like you find the channel and find the information. So thank you guys very much. So this week, I've been really battling with this idea that I am somehow like either shortchanging myself or doing it wrong because I live the vast majority of my life in headphones. I do it for a couple of reasons. First of all, I live in a house with other human beings, and I don't have a separate studio and all of that. And so they have lives, and being able to do final mixes and masters with speakers, super loud and everything. It's not always practical. The other thing is, and the other reason is I don't have like the best speakers. I don't have a perfect acoustically treated room, and I'm just not sure that I can trust my speakers. I trust my ears, but I'm not sure that I have an environment enough, clean enough to really just 100% go in and check my mixes and do my mixing and mastering in speakers. So I live the vast majority of my life in headphones, and I've grown used to it. Now, the headphones that I use the Sony MDR 7506s. They are the kind of industry standard studio headphones. I have another pair of headphones that I've been trying to love for a long time. These are the Beyerdynamic DT 990 Pros. They're open back. That's why I got them. I've been trying to love them for almost 2 years now, I think, and I just keep coming back to these. Now, there are some pros and cons to mixing in headphones. So let's start with the cons first. First of all, you get an artificial sense of stereo placement. You get an artificial sense of kind of how wide things sound, and you don't get the experience of sound from the left channel entering in your right ear. Kind of, you don't have the wash of sound waves kind of all blending together and giving you that experience, which is why things like the quality of speakers, studio setup, and sound reinforcement and all of that is so important in a situation. The other thing is, in a situation, if you're mixing in speakers, the other con is that headphones are inherently biased. Now, I don't mean that they have political opinions or whatever. I mean that they come with a frequency footprint that will color your sound. And no matter how flat a response a headphone claims to have, it's going to have some kind of bias. And I know that the Sony 7506s, they are not necessarily flat. They're kind of V, meaning they kind of boost the bass and boost the highs and the mids kind of disappear a little bit. One of the reasons I got the 990s is because I was told that they are like really flat, and I'm not necessarily found that to be the case. They're a little high, and I went open back because it's a more airy sound. These are closed back, so sound doesn't escape. These are open back, so sound goes through. The reason the 7506s are so popular in a studio because as a closed back headphones, sound doesn't bleed out of the headphones much. I mean, you really have to crank it to get sound to bleed out into the microphones. You definitely don't want to be using open backs in a studio if you are recording near microphones. And so, and I haven't, like I said, I haven't been able to really get on board with these. And I need to, and I don't know if it's just my ears aren't used to it, and I'm so used to the 7506s. So headphones are going to have an implicit bias to it, which will color your sound and affect the mix. Those are the two primary disadvantages to working in headphones. Well, and there are others like ear fatigue and ear health and damaging your ears and all of that. But that's just good common sense. Don't damage your ears by cranking it out so high. But I have found the advantages for me as a composer, and a composer who does a lot of fine detail work, whether it's detail work automating virtual instruments or mix tweaking or panning and effects and those kind of things. I find that I can really hear those details in headphones much better than speakers. Like if I'm working on an expression curve and I'm trying to figure out where the crossover point is, where my horn opens up from kind of a mellow sound to more of a brassy sound, I feel like I can really hear that in headphones. And I feel like the sound is just really close to me. It's almost like in my head. And so even if I'm just recreationally watching videos or something, doing learning or whatever in the studio, 9 times out of 10 I'm going to put in headphones or put on headphones because I feel like I can hear it considerably better. And maybe that's my own bias. Like I just need to kind of get over that. Okay, so all of that having been said, I unapologetically work in headphones, but there are some things to keep in mind. First of all, if you are mixing in headphones, it's vital that you check your mix around other sources. That you check your mix in your studio speakers, no matter what quality they are. Check your mix, and I will do that. I'll do all my work in my headphones, and I'll be like, I'm happy with this. Take off the headphones, listen to them in the mixer or in the speakers, and then go from there. Make some tweaks as needed. Then I'll throw it like a lot of times I text it to myself, text a wave to myself, and I'll listen to it on the phone speaker, listen to it in my car, listen to it on my home stereo system. But I'm referencing all over the different audio outputs that I have in my life. So I will check those. So make sure that you are referencing your music beyond just the headphones. I do my work in headphones, but I don't stay in headphones. The other thing is that I incorporate a plugin by Sonarworks, and it used to be called like Reference, I think. But what Sonarworks does is has a plugin now called SoundID Reference, and I'm not sponsored by them. I don't get any money or kickback or whatever. But what SoundID does is it introduces an EQ curve that is in opposition to the bias, your standard average bias of your headphone model, which will give you whatever target EQ you're looking for. So if I'm looking for the flat target, I'm trying to turn these off. All right. So my target for these is I want a flat response. So my bias of my headphones, in this case, my 7506s, which you can load up a bunch of different headphone profiles. It's very, very, very exhaustive list of headphone profiles. And it will create an EQ curve in opposition of that to counteract the bias of the headphones. And I have found this to be very helpful. So what I will do is I will work in headphones without this plugin. And then when I go to mix and master, I will turn on the plugin, work in this plugin, and then deselect it and spit out my final stems and mixes. The other thing that's super helpful is that in addition to the flat response, I can also go and check my mix against other sound sources or other output sources, I should say. So I can check and see what it sounds like in a car. It has different types of cars, in-ears, laptop, smartphone, studio speakers, TVs. And this is really, really helpful to help reference your mix in various areas. I found this to be very, very helpful. So admitting and recognizing that my headphones are going to have certain biases and using methods going and physically referencing your mixes in other places and using technology, and in this case, plugins, to help offset those biases. So, I'm Dave, and I am not sorry, and I will no longer apologize for mixing and mastering in headphones. I've actually received compliments from producers or publishers and fellow composers for how clean my mixes sound, and I think that's in part because sometimes I don't always know what I'm doing, and so I don't know everything that I should, quote unquote, be throwing on a mix. Right? I don't like compressor upon compressor and gain stay. I just don't get super bogged down in that. Part of that is ignorance because I don't know everything that like an engineer would know. But also, I think it's because I do a lot of my work in headphones. So for right now, as of the end of week 15 of 2021, that's my life. And I'm going to give the 990s another shot, especially since Sonorworks recently updated their plugin. So I think I'm going to give it another shot. But so far, the 7506s, these are my Desert Island headphones. So with that in mind, let's take a listen to Casual Mondays, and then we'll talk about it on the other side. casual Mondays, and harmonically speaking, it was inspired by the progression from the Office theme. That kind of that one to the minor three kind of sound. There's like a hint of melancholy to it that I find really fascinating. And so this is for an album project that I'm working on for a publisher wanting kind of happy ukulele. Are all ukulele inspired cues. And so I'm looking for all these different ways to use a ukulele. I've written an African high life. I've written your typical kind of ukulele cue. I'm writing a Hawaiian flavored ukulele cue. I'm doing a gypsy jazz ukulele. So all these different types of usage of ukulele. Now, whether or not I can get through 15 different, that remains to be seen. All right, so it starts off with the ukulele. I am doubling the ukulele, meaning that I have a track on the left, and then a double track on the right, and pan those left and right. Marimba is just stock Logic marimba. Stock Logic. I still keep coming back to the stock Logic marimba, and I have been on the hunt for a marimba as versatile as this, and I haven't been able to. This electric bass, this is the Scarby J bass, which is the jazz bass. I like this from Complete, and I like it because it has a neck position and a bridge position. So when I want kind of a big round bassy sound, then I will bring that to the table with the CLA Chris Lord Algae. I think that's how I think that's how you pronounce it. Or alga. I've never actually heard it pronounced. Just a quick, just bass amp modeling kind of thing. And then some electric piano, which is some Keyscape electric piano, which I gotta be honest, I got Keyscape for the pianos, but the electric pianos and the Whirly are about worth the price of admission. Celeste, which is stock Logic's Celeste, and a clarinet, which is not stock. This is Vienna instrument with some expression, automation there. I bring in little melodic reinforcements using this brand new Sonic Couture, or new to me. It might have been new, but this Glockenspiel library. And I've talked about that on the channel before about, hey, I don't need another Glock library, but the fact that it has rubber, plastic, and brass mallets, and it comes with crotales and tubular bells, orchestral chimes, it was a no-brainer. My xylophone is the Vienna Ensemble xylophone as well. And I tried several different xylophones. And the problem I kept having, I have like BBCSO xylophone, I have East-West xylophone, and so many of them were just like set in the back of the stage, and they were so just big. And one of the problems actually I had with the BBCSO xylophone is some of the attack envelopes seemed really weird and out there, like almost like the transient was being funky, and so I came back to the Vienna instrument. And one of the things to understand about Vienna instrument rather, is that they're very, very dry. So you have to do some processing to them. And so being able to throw my own reverb, that it actually was a benefit. I don't use Vienna a ton outside of their woodwinds. Their woodwinds, I think, are some of the best, and I use those all the time. But the mallets I hadn't really used before because they are so dry. But because I was layering, then this actually worked out best for me. So that worked out. I really dug it. I did add a little banjo layer, which is the banjo ukulele. And this is not double tracked. Instead, it's a single mono source using a sample delay of 10 milliseconds. So I'm delaying the left side and sprinkle that in with the ukulele. Okay, as far as my percussion, this is the Superior Drummer Indie Folk Kit, and it came with their Easy X, so it wasn't the full thing, the full library. But what I really liked about it is that I have these different options. So Gretsch kit, Slingerland kit, and I really, really like it. It sounds really nice, very kind of folksy kind of vibe. Now, the snare drum is actually a recording. I busted out the snare drum and I played some brushes. It's one of those things that as a drummer, I could spend a ton of time programming this to sound super realistic, or I can just bust out a snare drum and some brushes and play something. Now, the percussion is mega understated in cues like this. And so in the full mix, right, this is not a drum feature, so I shouldn't be like, the kick doesn't need to shake the subwoofer. I did throw on a recorded shaker. And I think it's this guy right here, this little Rhythm Tech Studio. Suspended cymbal, recorded suspended cymbal roll. And some claps that I just turned on the mic, and 4 layers, and they are panned layers. So left, right, and a left, and a right. So all the percussion sounds like that. Now, I do throw compressors on any recorded audio source. It just helps to contain the overall, the transients so they don't get super spiky. And one of the things about like recording a snare drum is you can pull off little touches like this. So I'm coming to the end of the phrase. Right, just a little sweep with the brush. Something like this is nearly impossible to program unless you can find a one shot of a little shh. But auditioning all these sounds, looking for that, or I can just right, significantly easier, and it adds so much to it. Now, one of the things that's a little bit different about these types of cues is they're very much more song form driven. So instead of your attention type cue where you would start off with your idea, your primary melodic hook, and then build, and then layer, and then layer, and then the breakdown would just be like either hanging out on one chord, or just stripping back some of the layers and letting a secondary melody kind of come into the foreground. Instead, with these, because they're songs, it actually feels much more like a bridge. So a different actual chord progression. So I go to the 4 chord and just standard song form, as opposed to this typical production music form. I mean, it's still kind of a breakdown, which is why I don't have a big melody kicking super loud here. Then I pull the energy back, so we have an A, B, A form, and when I go back to my returning A, I start low. It doesn't push a ton of energy, but I do create my editable moment here, where an editor can go in and splice in this little B section or whatever as needed. There is some octave doubling here, because every phrase I want to add energy to the cue. That's standard operating procedure. So here I start with the melody, then I add the little Glock accents, then I add the xylophone, and then I add the xylophone plus harmony. And then at the end, the button, just a little flourish on the end of the button there. So that was Casual Mondays, recorded, mixed, and mastered in these cans. And I would love to know what you think. What do you think about recording and mixing in headphones? Is it complete blasphemy? Am I completely out of my mind to be doing this? What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. And like I said at the beginning, as always, I want to thank my Patreon patrons who support the channel. And if that's something that you are interested in, if you find these videos helpful, then consider dropping me $1 and joining us over in Patreon. And you could get access to my weekly live streams. I live stream at least one cue every single week from beginning to end, starting with a blank DAW and ending with a finished cue on some point. Sometimes I have to come back the next day or a couple of days later and finish it up. And we have one that we will be live streaming the remainder of later this week. But if that's something you're interested in, please consider heading over to patreon.com/Dave Croft. Also, please like and subscribe the video, all the standard YouTube stuff, because it helps composers just like you find this video. So I hope you have an amazing week 16, and I will see you next time. Until then, peace.